So at the end of at the end of the video today, I'll just show you the face in its entirety. But I have the blues brought into the bottom. It's very speckled, and yeah, I mean, in this case, it actually has the look a little bit abstract of an abstract. However, we know exactly what these are. These lines coming in, so that brings us to representational abstraction, because we know what we're looking at. There's no question about that. Anyway, I honestly don't take myself seriously enough to worry about those kinds of things. I'm going to lay just a sliver of light along the very edge. Not everywhere, but in certain areas along this trunk. You know, just picking up some of the light from the distance. I won't do it so much in other ones. Mostly just this one. If you do one, people generally get the idea. They understand what you're saying. And there usually isn't a need to do every one. It's just like if you paint one leaf amongst a bunch of leaves, everybody knows that they are leaves, even though they might look just like a cluster of some sort. It becomes very obvious what they really are. It's a qualifier. Now on these trunks I'm using ultramarine blue. In some areas more than others I'm using cobalt blue. And I'm using a little raw umber, and I'm using a little bit of, what else do we have going on here? Burnt sienna. I'll add a hint of white to that. I'm just going to lay these things in right now so you can see where it's going. You know, the tedium of painting every square inch of it is something that I'll reserve that for myself. Go a little darker. Okay, that's our trunk in place. I think I'll continue this light up here a little bit before I sign out. As I'd mentioned, I don't want too much outlining going on in this painting. You know, the dark outline that I usually have. Okay, but while we're here, and before I let you go, let's drop that canvas and let's just put in, I need to experiment a little bit here, but I think for the tree tops, for the foliage up there, I'd like to put in a little bit of, let's try a hint of yellow ochre. or cad yellow pale, and just burnt sienna. No, that's too high a value. It needs to be a little bit different than this. What if I just add a bit of white to that burnt sienna? You know, a little bit to differentiate one area from the other, but it doesn't have to be too crazy different. Maybe my cad yellow pale was probably the wrong choice. Maybe yellow ochre would probably do the job just fine. That's catching too much light. Too much light. If it's going to catch light, it needs to be colder, and that's too warm. So let's add a little bit of ultramarine blue to that. I'm just doing a little test spot here. Okay, now we're mostly ultramarine blue. Yeah. That's more like it. I want it to appear to be forward, not, you know, compete with this light in the distance. But that's definitely more what I'm looking at. Because under here we're going to go quite dark. Let me just put a little more of that in there. Yes, it goes in the direction of green a little bit. I'm okay with that. As long as it's mostly brownish. You know, we don't want a fresh spring green in an autumn painting. Okay. Now if I put a hint of white right into that. Just white, just keeping it very cold. You know, we're almost going back into the grays that we have in the trunk. Not quite, but okay, now let's cut under it. Another little test spot. Ultramarine blue, bit of yellow ochre, bit of alizarin crimson, touch of white. Oh, such a small touch of white. We don't need to worry too much about there being colors under there, you know? A little bit of variety is nice, but we don't need to get carried away with it. Okay, that's just boring. Come on. Liven it up, Phil. This is another one of those moments where I'm just tightening up too much. Oddly enough, you'd think staying loose would be the easier thing to do. For me, it's not. I forget what I'm doing and I just tighten things up. I don't want this to be too organized up, but see? A few loose strokes and already it's better. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with that. The trunks need a bit of precision, you know. This top isn't going to be needing that. But let me just back the camera up for a second and show you how it's going. Rattle, rattle, rattle. I don't know if it's going to show up this way on your computer screen, but right now the bottom of that painting is looking extremely blue. But when I sit in front of it, it's nowhere near that blue. I've toned all those blues down using a bit of raw umber, burnt sienna, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a bit of white, hints of yellow ochre. I'm looking through my camera and it's not showing very accurately at all what I've done. But anyway, you know, that unto itself, you could say that's sort of forest floor with a lot of small autumn colored foliage. Whether I show it as such kind of depends on whether I put some shadow around the bottom of those trunks or not. I may just leave them hanging and just say it's all just low bush, you know. I love that ability to leave the interpretation open to people. Here, let's show you the highlighting on the edge of the trunk there. That's cad white and a little bit of a hint of yellow ochre in it to warm it up. I don't want the small reflection that there is from the distant bush on this trunk. I don't want it to be too cold a light, because indeed the painting has, well, it's warm light, you know. That's what the source is. It's a very warm color. And that, yeah, I think I'll work with the combination there. So that'll just end up being burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, bit of white in places. Okay. Yeah, I like the design anyway. It's decorative. Talk to you soon.